To our wonderful viewers at Cheating Hour, welcome and thank you. Your presence makes these stories worth sharing. If you like stories like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on our next exciting story. We'd love to hear, which part of the world are you joining us from? Let us know now in the comments. And if you've ever been through something like this, share your experience in the comments. Colin Barrett adjusted the cuffs of his gray suit, the familiar weight of routine grounding him as he prepared to leave the office. At 42, he was the COO of a mid-sized engineering firm based out of Chicago, and his days were built with the precision of a blueprint: early coffee, morning briefings, tight schedules, and calm command. He wasn't loud or flashy. He didn't need to be. His authority came from his consistency, a man who showed up, delivered, and didn't flinch in the face of pressure. He was also a father to an 11-year-old son named Jordan, who loved Legos and astronomy. Colin made time for bedtime stories and science fair projects, even on weeks he clocked 60-hour work schedules. His wife, Elise, had once admired that about him. They met 16 years ago, back when he was a project lead and she was an art history graduate working part-time at a museum gift shop. Their worlds couldn't have been more different, but something clicked. Her warmth, her laughter, her fascination with old paintings, his methodical charm and quiet strength. They married 2 years later. Elise transitioned smoothly into the lifestyle Colin's job afforded them: a brownstone in Lincoln Park, gallery openings, Pilates classes, and weekend brunches with her vibrant, well-dressed family. Colin didn't quite fit in with the Donovan clan. They were theatrical, effusive, sharp-tongued. Elise was the youngest of 4 sisters and often the center of attention, a place she'd learned to maintain through wit and a magnetic sort of charisma. Still, Colin loved her. Or perhaps he loved the version of her from before the gallery exhibitions and wine tastings. When it was just the two of them in their starter apartment, piecing together IKEA furniture and laughing at cooking disasters, things felt mutual. Now, more often than not, it felt like he was watching her from behind glass. Their marriage wasn't broken, but it wasn't whole either. He felt it in the little ways: the missed calls, the distracted nods when he told her about work, the way she checked her phone after dinner, always tilted away from his view. Colin didn't confront. He observed, always had. He believed that patterns told truths people tried to hide. He noticed that Elise laughed more on weekends, but not with him. Her phone would ping, and she'd vanish into another room, then return smiling. Her tone changed when she answered certain calls. Lighter, a little too rehearsed. She started going to more evening events, solo, art showings, dinner parties. "It's for the gallery," she'd say. "Networking. You wouldn't be interested." Colin never pressed, but he started saving the receipts she left lying around. One in particular caught his attention: a jewelry store in the Gold Coast. Elise didn't wear much jewelry anymore, but this was dated 3 weeks before their 12th anniversary. No gift ever materialized. Still, he held his silence. For their anniversary, he bought her a framed first-edition print of her favorite Edward Hopper painting. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't diamonds, but it was meaningful. He'd tracked down a gallery in New York that specialized in early 20th century Americana and had it shipped with a handwritten letter detailing why the painting reminded him of her. When he presented it to her at dinner, Elise smiled politely. "It's beautiful," she said, but her eyes didn't match the tone. She set it aside like a receipt. That night, she fell asleep scrolling through her phone, screen turned away from him. Jordan noticed the change too. "Mom doesn't tuck me in anymore," he said one night. "She says she's busy." Colin rubbed his son's back and simply said, "I'll do it." Thanksgiving approached. Elise invited her whole family over. It was a tradition. Colin never quite looked forward to it, but he showed up. He always showed up. He handled the turkey, cleaned the silverware, smiled through the jabs from her brothers-in-law about his quiet little job. Elise never defended him. This year, he decided to do something different. He spent 3 weeks preparing a surprise gift for Elise, not for their anniversary, not for Christmas, just because. He hired a graphic artist to recreate their early apartment as a 3D miniature model. Every detail: the chipped counter, the record player she loved, the tea towels they got from her aunt. He had it custom built and boxed in a cherry wood case. He waited until dessert, surrounded by Elise's family, their laughter bouncing off the walls, the wine flowing freely. He stood up and said, "Elise, I made something for you. I thought it might remind you of where we started. He handed her the box. She opened it. The room leaned in. Her eyes scanned the contents. Then she laughed. Not a gentle laugh, not even one of disbelief. A mocking, open laugh. You made me a dollhouse? She said, holding it up. Oh my God, this is quaint. Her sister chuckled. Someone muttered, That's something. Colin didn't smile. He didn't blink. Elise looked at him, still laughing. I mean, it's very you. Thoughtful. Just not what I expected. He nodded slowly. I figured. He reached beneath the table and pulled out a second box. This one was smaller, sleek, black. You might like this better, he said, and placed it in front of her. Elise paused. The room hushed slightly. Curiosity piqued. She opened it. Inside were printed screenshots, dozens of them. Texts, photos, dates, names. At the top was a cover page. Filed petition for dissolution of marriage, Barrett versus Barrett. Colin didn't say anything. Elise's face lost its color. The last screenshot was a message thread between her and someone saved as M. M. Does he suspect? Elise. He barely notices me anymore. He's too busy being boring. M. Soon you'll be mine. Elise. He's just comfortable money. You're real fire. She closed the box. No one at the table spoke. Colin stood up. Dinner was lovely, he said. I'll be in touch through my attorney. Enjoy your quaint little house. Then he walked out. And Elise, for the first time that night, had nothing to say. The wind outside howled through the narrow streets of Lincoln Park as Colin stepped into the cold night, each footfall deliberate, measured, like every choice he had made leading to this moment. He didn't look back at the house. He didn't need to. Behind those walls, the woman he had once built a life with sat surrounded by the remnants of her double life, exposed, silent, and scrutinized by her own family. The walk to his car was the quietest part of the evening. Inside, he paused for a long moment with his hands on the steering wheel, his breath misting in the cold air. He didn't cry, he didn't speak, he simply started the engine and drove. Colin didn't go home that night. Home, as it had been defined, no longer existed. Instead, he drove to a modest extended-stay suite near the office, the kind of place business travelers used when projects kept them on the road for weeks. It was clean, impersonal, and perfect. He didn't want comfort. He wanted clarity. He unpacked only the essentials, a change of clothes, his laptop, and the file folder containing copies of all the evidence he had compiled. It had taken him 5 months. At first, he wasn't even sure what he was looking for, only that something felt wrong. It was in the way Elise smiled without warmth, the way she volunteered too much detail about unimportant errands, the increasing number of weekends she spent helping a friend with a gallery relaunch. The folder was a timeline of unraveling trust. Expense reports, receipts, time-stamped text messages Jordan had accidentally seen when borrowing her iPad. Colin never yelled, he never confronted. Instead, he traced everything, made calls, cross-checked dates. He became a silent architect of his own escape. Every piece of evidence was documented legally, cleanly. No spying, no hacks, just observation and pattern recognition. The man named M in the texts was Marcus Langdon, a regional director of a prominent nonprofit. Elise had met him at a gallery fundraiser. Married, charismatic, always traveling. The perfect co-conspirator. Colin had even shaken his hand once at a charity gala, noting his firm grip and politician's smile. At the time, he dismissed his unease as social fatigue. Now he knew better. The betrayal had layers, not just romantic. Elise had started moving money. Nothing dramatic, just small withdrawals from their joint account, transfers to her personal one, a credit card he didn't know she had. Colin's financial acumen kicked in, and he quietly ran audits on their accounts. What he found was troubling. Elise had siphoned over $26,000 over 8 months, just under the radar, just under the threshold that might have triggered an alert. He didn't confront her. Instead, he hired a discreet forensic accountant and had his lawyer begin preparing divorce filings. Everything needed to be airtight. Now, the wheels were in motion. The box he'd handed her wasn't just symbolic. It was a legal salvo. His attorney would serve the official papers in the morning. Elise's shock tonight would only deepen when she realized how complete his plan already was. The next morning, Colin sat across from his lawyer, Abigail Morse. A sharp, composed woman in her early 50s, she was known in Chicago legal circles for being both compassionate and ruthlessly precise. "You did everything right," she said after reviewing the file again. "This gives us control of the narrative. The financials are clear, the emotional betrayal is documented, and given her spending and the affair, we have a solid case for primary custody." Colin nodded. "I don't want to destroy her, I just want peace, and I want my son safe." Abigail leaned forward. "Then we move quickly. Temporary custody motion goes in today. We'll also freeze joint assets until this is resolved. She'll be notified within 48 hours. Colin left her office feeling something he hadn't felt in months. Relief. Not joy, not vengeance, just the sense of air returning to his lungs. He texted Jordan's school and arranged to pick him up early. That afternoon, he explained as gently as he could that he and Mom would be living in different places for a while. Jordan frowned. "Is it because you guys fight a lot?" "No," Colin said, choosing his words with care. "It's because people sometimes stop being kind to each other. And when that happens, we have to protect the people we love. That means you." Jordan nodded slowly. "Will I still see Mom?" "Yes," Colin said. "But you'll stay with me for now, until everything gets sorted." Later, when they arrived at the suite, Jordan walked around curiously. "It smells like new carpet." "It probably is," Colin said with a soft smile. They ordered pizza and watched an old animated movie Jordan loved. For the first time in weeks, his son laughed freely. Colin sat beside him on the couch, anchoring himself to that sound. The next few days passed with surgical precision. Elise called twice, once to scream, once to plead. Colin answered neither. Abigail handled all communication. Elise's initial fury transformed into panicked negotiation once she realized the full extent of the legal action taken. The asset freeze, the forensic audit, the custody petition, every step neutral, lawful, and effective. The Donovan family, previously loud and colorful, grew strangely quiet. Colin suspected that after the Thanksgiving scene, Elise hadn't received the sympathy she expected. Her sisters, once quick to ridicule him, had witnessed her downfall with their own eyes. The optics couldn't be brushed away with charm or denial. One afternoon, Colin received a text from Elise. "Please, can we talk, just the two of us, for closure?" He stared at it for a while before replying, "Tomorrow, 11 a.m., at Abigail's office." She didn't argue. The next day, Elise arrived dressed in somber tones, her hair pulled back tightly, her eyes swollen but defiant. Colin sat beside his lawyer, calm, composed. "I didn't think you'd go this far," Elise said, voice cracking. "I thought you still cared." "I did," Colin said. "That's why this hurts so much. But caring doesn't mean tolerating betrayal." She looked down. "It wasn't just about Marcus. It was everything. I felt invisible." "So you made me invisible in return," he said. "You mocked the life we built. You took our money. You gambled our son's stability." She turned to Abigail. "Can I have just a minute alone with him?" Abigail looked at Colin, who nodded. When she left, Elise leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "I messed up, but I never thought you'd turn so cold." "You laughed at me in front of your family," Colin said. "Not at a joke, not at a mistake, but at a gift from someone you claimed to love. That moment didn't break me. It clarified me." She blinked. "Do you hate me?" "No," he said, "but I don't owe you any more pieces of myself." She didn't speak again. Abigail returned. The meeting ended. That evening, Colin and Jordan went to the planetarium. It was a Tuesday, quiet, peaceful. They stood under the dome, watching simulations of stars being born. Jordan whispered, "Dad, is this what starting over looks like?" Colin placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yeah, buddy, I think it is." And in the soft glow of artificial galaxies, a father and son stood side by side, the quiet beginnings of a new chapter written not in rage, but in resolve. By the third week, the rhythm of their new life had begun to take shape. Colin adjusted to packing school lunches in the morning, reviewing construction bids remotely from his hotel suite, and navigating life as a single father. The suite was temporary, but the peace it offered was anything but. It was strange how quickly the silence had gone from unfamiliar to comforting. Jordan adapted even faster. He slept better. He stopped asking about Elise every day. When he did ask, it came with less fear and more curiosity, like a child poking at a faded bruise. Elise, meanwhile, continued to unravel in the background. Her lawyer had attempted to negotiate partial custody, then supervised visitation, then at least weekends. Abigail shut down each request with surgical precision. Colin wasn't vengeful, he wasn't unreasonable. He simply insisted on stability for Jordan, backed by the evidence. Elise's erratic behavior, her absence from Jordan's life, the questionable use of funds. One evening, Colin received an email from the headmaster of Jordan's private school. A polite request for a meeting, not disciplinary, just a conversation about emotional support resources. Colin scheduled it for Friday morning. He arrived early, wearing his usual composed expression. The headmaster greeted him warmly and led him into a modest office with childlike drawings pinned to the walls. "We've noticed some changes in Jordan's demeanor," the headmaster began. "He's doing well academically, exceptionally well actually, but he's reserved, watchful." Colin nodded. "He's been through a lot. We understand that, and we want to support him. But yesterday he drew something during art class that gave his teacher pause." He pulled out a sheet of paper. Crayon lines. A tall figure standing alone outside a house. Inside the house were two people, a woman with red hair, a man with no face. Between them, a broken table. Jordan had written 2 words at the bottom. He knew. Colin stared at it. "I thought you should see this," the headmaster said. "He may be processing more than he can express verbally." Colin cleared his throat. "Thank you, I'll talk to him, and I appreciate you flagging this." That night, after dinner, Colin showed the drawing to Jordan. Jordan looked at it and nodded slowly. "That's from before. When I heard Mom say stuff on the phone, she didn't know I was there." "What kind of stuff?" Jordan hesitated. "She said you were boring, that she missed someone named Marcus, and she laughed, like she was happy to say it." Colin's heart clenched. "You knew?" "Not everything, but I knew something was wrong. You were always quiet. She was always gone." Colin pulled him into a hug. "You never have to carry that alone, okay? You can always tell me what you feel." Jordan didn't cry. He simply held on tighter. Meanwhile, Elise's lawyer made a bold move. They filed for mediation, hoping to settle outside of court. Colin and Abigail agreed, but only on strict terms. Full custody for Colin, supervised visitation for Elise, and no claim to marital assets given the documented financial misconduct. The mediation took place in a downtown law office, sterile and fluorescent lit. Elise looked tired. Her once effortless elegance now seemed strained, her makeup heavier than usual, like she was trying to recreate a version of herself that no longer existed. She opened the conversation. "I know I messed up, but I'm still his mother." Colin kept his voice level. "Then act like it. Get help. Show him you can be consistent. This isn't about punishing you. It's about protecting him." "I can do better. I want another chance." Abigail interjected. "Then we recommend counseling and a 6-month review period. If you comply, visitation rights will be reconsidered." Elise nodded slowly. "Fine. I'll do it." Colin watched her, unsure if the remorse was real or strategic, but he no longer needed to know. His decisions weren't rooted in trust anymore. They were rooted in evidence, structure, and a quiet duty to the boy who looked up at him every morning over cereal. That weekend, Jordan and Colin visited Colin's sister in Madison. Aunt Mara was a pediatrician with 2 teenage sons and a golden retriever named Baxter. Her home buzzed with the kind of noise that only came from people who liked each other. Jordan played basketball in the driveway, laughed until his sides hurt, and asked if they could come back next month. Mara pulled Colin aside one evening. "You seem lighter. I mean, it's still heavy, I know, but you seem steady." "I had to be," Colin said. "For Jordan. For myself." "Do you miss her?" He considered the question carefully. "I miss who she used to be. But that version of her left long before I filed anything." Mara nodded. "Then you're doing the right thing." Back in Chicago, Colin and Jordan returned to a new apartment. The The suite had served its purpose, but they needed something with permanence. He found a two-bedroom condo on the edge of the city, with hardwood floors and a view of the skyline. Jordan picked his room, painted it a bright blue, and filled it with space posters and shelves for his Lego builds. The apartment had fewer memories, which made it easier to build new ones. Elise began attending counseling. She sent updates through her lawyer. Colin appreciated the effort but didn't respond. He didn't need to. The courts would handle what needed handling. Then one day, Marcus Langdon's name appeared in the news. A local publication had unearthed a scandal, misuse of nonprofit funds, inappropriate relationships with multiple staff members, and a pending internal investigation. The article didn't mention Elise, but the timing aligned too neatly to ignore. Colin forwarded the link to Abigail. She called him later. If Elise was involved with Marcus during his tenure, especially with the financial irregularities, it could impact her credibility further. Will it affect custody? Not directly, but it strengthens our case for continued full custody without shared decision-making. Colin said nothing. He didn't feel satisfaction, only the strange, hollow echo of justice doing its slow, grinding work. Elise never addressed the article, but she did stop asking for unsupervised visits. Her messages became less frequent, more formal. She began sending Jordan short video messages instead, neutral, cautious, sometimes clumsy attempts at reconnection. Jordan watched them, but he didn't respond right away. Then, one Saturday, he turned to Colin and said, "Can I send her a video back?" Colin nodded. "Of course. Say whatever you want." Jordan recorded a short clip. "Hi, Mom. I hope you're okay. I'm okay. I have a new room, and I made a Lego rocket that actually launches. Dad helps me a lot. I miss how things used to be, but I don't feel sad all the time anymore. Maybe we can talk soon." He sent it. No flourish, no performance, just honesty. Colin watched his son, proud of the quiet strength forming in him. As the weeks turned to months, the divorce neared its finalization. Colin didn't mark the days. He didn't need a countdown. His life had already changed. The paperwork would only reflect what had already become true. The house was gone, the marriage was gone, but peace remained. On the morning of the final hearing, Colin dressed carefully, not to impress, not for armor, but out of respect for the process. Jordan stayed with Mara for the day. Colin walked into the courthouse with Abigail at his side. Elise was already there. She didn't look at him as he sat across from her. The judge was efficient, respectful. Both parties affirmed the terms. Full custody to Colin, with potential for visitation after a review period. No claim on marital assets. Division of remaining property as previously settled. The gavel struck once. It was done. Outside the courthouse, Elise approached him. "Thank you for not making it worse." Colin looked at her, eyes calm. "You made it exactly what it needed to be." Then he walked away. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt finished. And that was enough. Spring arrived in Chicago with hesitant warmth, patches of green pushing through the dull gray of winter's end. Colin settled into the new rhythm of life without Elise, not as something temporary, but as the permanent shape of things now. His mornings began with Jordan's alarm and ended with quiet reading instead of strained conversations across the dinner table. He hadn't realized just how much of his energy had been spent on walking carefully around someone who had already emotionally left the room. Jordan was thriving. His drawings now featured full families, sometimes just him and Colin at the park or building Lego cities at their kitchen table. His therapist said the difference in his emotional expression was notable. He laughed more freely, asked deeper questions, and began forming new routines with his dad. Colin learned how to braid friendship bracelets and build solar system mobiles from scratch. He was discovering, perhaps for the first time, that fatherhood wasn't just about showing up. It was about shaping the air his son breathed. One Friday evening, Jordan asked if they could invite some of his classmates over for a sleepover. Colin agreed without hesitation, even though the idea of 6 preteens hopped up on pizza and sugar mildly terrified him. But the night was a success. The boys stayed up watching space documentaries and playing video games. One of the parents texted Colin afterward to thank him, saying their son hadn't laughed that hard in months. Colin read the message twice. There were still remnants of Elise in their lives. Photos that Jordan wasn't ready to take down. Books she had marked. The occasional letter she mailed to their new address, written carefully in cursive, like a student trying to pass a test she already failed. Colin never opened them. He left them for Jordan to choose. One day, Jordan asked, "Can we keep one picture of all of us together? Just one?" Colin nodded. "Of course. Whatever makes you feel safe." So they picked one, a beach photo from 4 years ago. Elise was in sunglasses, Jordan was mid-laugh, and Colin looked like a man who still believed everything was whole. They framed it and put it in Jordan's room. Life didn't heal in dramatic ways. It stitched itself back slowly, like scar tissue forming over wounds you forgot how to name. Elise completed her counseling program. Her lawyer sent updates every other week. She had relocated to a smaller apartment and started working part-time at a local arts nonprofit. Colin knew because Abigail confirmed it quietly, as part of ongoing documentation. Elise hadn't asked for visitation again, not formally, but she continued sending short video messages. Jordan replied sometimes, other times he didn't. Colin didn't interfere. Then came the school showcase. Jordan had built a scale model of the solar system for his science class and asked Colin to come. "You have to see it in person. I made Saturn's rings with fishing line and glitter." The auditorium was filled with foldable tables, projects lined up neatly, proud parents wandering from one end to the other. Colin took photos, helped carry Jordan's poster board, and stood nearby as his son gave mini-tours to curious adults. Toward the end of the event, a quiet murmur swept the room. Elise had entered holding a small potted plant wearing a blue blouse and jeans. She looked uncertain but determined. Colin saw her before Jordan did. She approached slowly. "I heard about the showcase," she said, her voice soft. "I didn't want to interfere, just wanted to drop this off." Jordan spotted her, froze for a second, then waved. "Hi, Mom." She smiled, a real one this time, and handed him the plant. "A moonflower. It only blooms at night. Thought it might fit your theme." He accepted it gently. "Thanks. Want to see Saturn's rings?" Colin stepped back, giving them space. Elise looked at him once, not seeking permission, but acknowledgement. He gave her a brief nod, nothing more. For 10 minutes she stood beside Jordan as he showed her his model. She listened attentively, asked good questions, and didn't once try to turn the moment into anything more than it was. When it was time to go, she touched Jordan's shoulder and said, "You did amazing. I'm proud of you." Then she left. That night, Jordan didn't say much. He sat at the dining table playing with a mechanical pencil, lost in thought. "You okay?" Colin asked. "Yeah, just thinking. It was weird seeing her, but not bad weird, just like remembering a dream you forgot." Colin nodded. "She handled it well. She didn't try to hug me or make a scene. That was nice. Sometimes people grow, even after everything." Jordan looked at him. "Do you think she'll ever live with us again?" Colin paused. "I don't think so, but that doesn't mean she can't be part of your life, if you want her to be." Jordan thought for a moment. "I want her to be, but I want her to stay the way she was today, not how she used to be." "That's fair." Weeks passed. Elise kept her distance. She sent a few books and postcards. One time she included a watercolor she painted of Saturn, which Jordan hung next to his model. In June, the school year ended. Jordan graduated 5th grade with a certificate in science achievement. Colin took him out for burgers and milkshakes. On the walk home, Jordan asked, "What happens now?" "What do you mean?" "Like, what happens when you stop being sad? Do you go back to who you were before?" Colin smiled. "No, you become someone different, not worse, just someone who understands more." "I think I'm starting to understand too." Summer arrived with long days and open skies. Colin took time off work. They visited a national park, slept in tents, learned how to build campfires. At night, Jordan would point at constellations and name them without hesitation. He was changing, more confident, still gentle but sharper in the ways that mattered. Back in Chicago, Colin began exploring the idea of buying a house again, not out of necessity, but desire. He wanted space, a backyard, a permanent bedroom for Jordan that didn't feel like the result of a rushed move. He found a craftsman-style home on a quiet street with a small garden and an attic they could turn into a telescope observatory. The day they moved in, Jordan said, "Can we make a new memory wall? not just pictures, but stuff we did. They started with a printout of the planetarium tickets, a photo of the Lego rocket, and the glittered Saturn model. That same night, Colin sat alone in the living room after Jordan went to bed. He poured himself a glass of water, not wine, and stared out the window at the quiet street below. He thought of the man he had been, the one who smiled through Elise's parties, who gave quietly, observed constantly, and endured too much for too long. He didn't hate that man, but he had outgrown him. The future was unwritten, uncertain, but it was his again, and that was enough. August came with its own rhythm, the kind of slow, golden cadence that makes even a city like Chicago feel gentle. The new house had become a home. The backyard had been transformed into a space of summer barbecues and late-night stargazing, with a fire pit Colin and Jordan had built together using old bricks and YouTube tutorials. They roasted marshmallows there, just the two of them, sometimes saying nothing at all, just letting the flames speak. Colin had resumed full-time work, but with new boundaries. He no longer stayed late out of obligation or let his inbox determine the course of his evening. When Jordan was home, Colin was present, not distracted, not worn down, but alive to the moment. For years he had balanced his marriage on a knife edge of diplomacy, stretching himself thin to keep the peace. Now he simply chose peace, intentionally. Elise had maintained her distance. Her messages to Jordan came every week, always short and gentle. She had stopped asking about custody and started focusing on being consistent. There were no grand gestures, no attempts to rewrite the past, just small threads being offered, quietly, with more humility than Colin had thought her capable of. One afternoon, Jordan handed Colin his tablet. She sent a video. Want to see it with me? Colin nodded. Elise appeared on the screen, sitting outside a cafe, natural light soft on her face. Hi, sweet boy. Just wanted to say I'm proud of you. I heard you aced your math quiz. That's amazing. I know I wasn't always there when you needed me, and I'm sorry. I can't go back. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. She smiled, small and sincere. Keep being kind. And tell your dad thanks for everything he's done. I mean that. Jordan hit pause. She looks different. She sounds different too, Colin said. Do you believe her now? Colin took a breath. I believe she's trying. That matters, right? It does. By late August, Colin received notice that the 6-month review period had passed without issue. Elise had complied with every requirement: counseling, stable housing, no legal infractions, consistent contact with Jordan. The judge approved limited visitation, supervised by a neutral third party, once every 2 weeks. Jordan took the news with a quiet nod. I want to try, he said, but I want you close, just in case. The first visit happened at a family therapy center downtown. Elise arrived early, wearing a pale green sweater, hair pulled back. Jordan walked in holding Colin's hand but let go quickly when he saw her. They spent the hour drawing pictures, playing a board game, and talking about school. Elise asked questions, but not too many. She listened more than she spoke. When the hour ended, she stood and said, I'll be here next time if you want. Jordan nodded. Okay. Colin met her gaze briefly as they walked out. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. September brought new schedules. Jordan started 6th grade, taller now, his voice changing slightly, his backpack heavier. He joined the science club and signed up for a weekend robotics program. Colin rearranged his work hours to attend every showcase. Elise came to some too, always at a distance, always careful not to overstep. One Saturday, after a particularly long robotics tournament, Jordan fell asleep in the car. Colin drove slowly through the quiet city streets, the late afternoon sun painting everything gold. His phone buzzed, a message from Elise. Thank you for how you've raised him, for not turning him against me, for giving him the chance to still love me. Colin stared at the message. Then he typed back. He deserves that chance. There was no reply, and none was needed. Autumn settled in. The leaves changed color. Jordan wore a hoodie almost every day, now too big for Colin to carry when he inevitably forgot it somewhere. They raked leaves together, built a scarecrow, planned Halloween costumes. Elise's visits became more natural. Jordan began asking for them instead of just accepting them. They added time slowly, and by November the court approved a trial overnight stay. Elise approached the event cautiously, keeping everything low-key. Colin packed Jordan's bag with all the essentials, plus extras. Before he left, Jordan turned to him and said, "If she messes up, I know I can come back." "You don't even have to wait," Colin replied. "Just call." The overnight passed without issue. Jordan came back sleepy but smiling. "She made pancakes with little planets on them," he said. "It was nice." Colin said, "Good." Thanksgiving came. Elise didn't ask to host. Instead, she suggested a quiet breakfast visit. Colin agreed. They met at a public garden cafe, just the three of them. Jordan brought a homemade gratitude jar and read a note he wrote. "I'm thankful for second chances, space rockets, and people who try." Elise teared up but didn't make it about her. That mattered. Later that day, Colin hosted dinner with his sister Mara and her family. Jordan was full of stories. He showed off his latest science fair medal and a new bracelet Elise had given him. Simple, with a little moon charm. Mara pulled Colin aside after dessert. "She's changed, huh?" "She has." "And you?" Colin smiled. "I didn't change. I returned." December arrived with snowstorms and holiday lights. Colin and Jordan set up their tree with their usual ornaments and a few new ones. Jordan added one Elise had painted, a simple glass globe with a Saturn ring etched in gold. He placed it near the top. "I like that she's not trying too hard," he said. "So do I." On Christmas morning, Jordan spent the first half at Colin's, then the afternoon at Elise's. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. When he returned, he showed Colin a small watercolor she had painted, a city skyline with stars overhead. Colin looked at it and nodded. "She's learning to give better gifts." "Like you used to." "Like I still do." Jordan laughed. "Yeah, you still do." In the final days of the year, Colin stood by the window of their house looking out at the street below. Snow blanketed everything. Jordan was in the next room, writing a story about a boy who built a rocket from cardboard and flew to a planet where everyone told the truth. Colin could hear the tapping of keys, the hum of imagination. His phone buzzed again. "Elise. Would it be okay if I gave him one last gift this year? Just a letter. No expectations." Colin replied, "If it's just for him, yes." An envelope arrived the next day. No return address. Just Jordan's name written in Elise's delicate hand. Colin gave it to him without comment. Jordan opened it slowly. Inside was a single page. "Dear Jordan, this year I learned a lot about myself. Some of it hurt. But the thing I learned most is that love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, again and again, even after you've failed. I will never be perfect, but I will always try to show up. You are the best part of anything I've ever done. Love, Mom." Jordan read it twice, then folded it and placed it in a small box where he kept things that mattered. Colin didn't ask how he felt. He didn't need to. They sat together on the couch, watching the snow fall in heavy, slow flakes. The past had already happened. The future, they were still writing. And in the quiet warmth of that room, nothing felt missing. Winter receded in gentle waves that February, the snow melting into rivulets that ran along the edges of sidewalks like whispered promises of spring. Colin had settled into his new life with a quiet that once might have felt like loneliness, but now felt like stability. The mornings were lighter, the days stretched out with possibility, and Jordan had begun waking up before his alarm, eager for school, robotics club, and weekend science fairs. Their home felt lived in now, not just moved into. The smell of toast and orange juice lingered each morning, books gathered on end tables, and Jordan's latest space model, a scale model of the Mars rover, took up most of the dining table. Elise remained a steady presence, carefully balanced. The supervised visits became unsupervised as the court reviewed her progress and approved longer interactions. There was no drama, no resistance. Colin never objected. He simply listened, observed, and stayed attuned to how Jordan responded. And the truth was, Jordan was doing well. Elise showed up. She kept her promises. She didn't overreach. Sometimes, they would all be in the same room, at school events, birthday parties for classmates, or a Saturday public planetarium lecture, and the dynamic, though cautious, was manageable. Elise kept to her lane. Colin didn't give more than necessary, but he also didn't deny her the chance to prove herself to their son. One evening in March, Jordan came home holding a permission slip. "There's a field trip to Cape Canaveral," he said, eyes wide. It's for the top 3 science students. It's during spring break. Colin read over the details. A week-long program, partnered with NASA Outreach. Only a few slots open to students from the Midwest. Jordan had been selected. "That's amazing," Colin said. "Of course you should go." Jordan hesitated. "The school said one parent can come, as a chaperone." Colin smiled. "Then it'll be me and you in Florida." "I want Mom to come, this time, if she can." The words settled between them like a shift in gravity. "You sure?" "Yeah, you've done everything. I just think, maybe if she sees what I love, she'll get me better." Colin didn't answer immediately. He thought of all the moments he'd carried alone, the late-night worries, the missed years, the rebuilding. But then he looked at Jordan, hopeful, grounded, steady. "I'll reach out to her," Colin said. He called Elise that night. She was surprised, but not giddy, not overeager, just quiet. "If you're willing," Colin said, "Jordan wants you to come to Cape Canaveral. It's spring break, school trip. You'd be there as his chaperone." A beat passed. "Are you sure you're okay with that?" "I'm not the point here. He is." "Then yes, absolutely. Thank you." The trip came quickly. Jordan packed meticulously, double-checking every checklist, researching everything he could about launch systems, astronauts, and propulsion. Colin helped him print out questions for the engineers they might meet. Elise sent over new walking shoes for Jordan, ones with little rocket symbols on the side. The day they left, Colin dropped them off at the airport. Elise had already arrived, dressed in soft travel clothes, hair tied back, and a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. She gave Colin a respectful nod. "I'll text you updates," she said. "Pictures too." "Just make sure he enjoys it." Jordan hugged Colin tightly. "Promise I'll take good notes." "You better. And bring me back something from the gift shop that doesn't have glitter." They laughed. Then they disappeared through the terminal, and Colin stood there for a while after they were gone. That week, the house felt empty, but not in a painful way. It gave Colin time to reflect, to breathe. He took walks, reorganized the garage, and even picked up an old hobby, restoring a vintage clock he'd inherited from his grandfather. He wasn't waiting by the phone, but he checked it often, and each time there was a message. Photos of Jordan beside a mock shuttle, videos of him asking questions, a picture of Elise and Jordan standing under the Saturn V, both beaming. Midway through the week, Elise sent a longer message. "He's thriving. He talks about you constantly, about how you helped him learn the stars, how you listen to his ideas like they're important. I know I don't deserve credit for who he is becoming, but I want you to know I'm proud of him and of you, and I'm sorry for what I took for granted." Colin didn't reply. When they returned, Jordan came bursting through the front door with stories. Colin listened for hours, asked questions, and let his son relive every detail. He noticed the difference in how Jordan talked about Elise, not with fantasy, not with longing, but with balanced, tempered realism. "She still gets tired faster than you," Jordan said, but she didn't complain, not once. April brought with it the final hearing for full settlement closure. Most of the agreements had already been implemented: custody, finances, property division. The hearing was a formality, but it felt like something more. Colin dressed plainly. Elise arrived with her lawyer, a slim folder in hand. The judge confirmed the settlement and asked both parties if there were any final motions or disputes. Neither had anything to add. Afterward, in the hallway, Elise stopped beside Colin. "I meant what I said in the message. I know. You don't owe me forgiveness, but I hope one day you find a place for it." Colin looked at her, really looked. There was no calculation in her face now, no performance. Just a woman who had been burned by her own choices and was still learning to walk with the scars. "I already did," he said. "I just didn't tell you." She blinked, caught off guard. "Why not?" "Because forgiveness isn't something I owed you. It was something I owed myself." She didn't speak, just nodded, then turned and left. That summer, Colin and Jordan finished the attic. It became a stargazing den, filled with cushions, star maps, and a mid-range telescope. They spent hours up there tracking meteor showers, naming constellations, and reading space books by flashlight. One evening, as they sat with the window open and the breeze drifting through, Jordan said, "You think Mom will ever get married again?" Maybe. Will you? Colin thought. If I do, it'll be because I want to, not because I need to. That's good. I like it just being us. Me too. August arrived again. A full year since the Thanksgiving dinner that changed everything. Colin found himself standing in the kitchen one night, staring at the same set of plates he had once served to people who mocked him under their breath. He packed them into a box and donated them the next morning. He replaced them with simple stoneware, gray, clean, quiet. Plates that didn't pretend to impress anyone. The morning after, Jordan made breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, a little burnt, but served proudly. "Happy almost anniversary," he said. "Of what?" "Of the day you stopped pretending everything was okay." Colin smiled. "Then I guess it's the start of everything being real." And in that moment, surrounded by toast crumbs and laughter, Colin knew it wasn't just a new chapter. It was a new book entirely. One he was writing on his own terms. One where peace wasn't a reward but a daily decision. And every day, he chose it again. Autumn returned with its steady rhythm, amber leaves drifting across the sidewalks like forgotten pages of last year's story. Colin had grown comfortable in the stillness of their new life. The house no longer whispered with old echoes. It hummed with laughter, school routines, the tapping of Jordan's fingers on the keyboard as he typed up science essays, and the occasional clatter of pans from Colin trying new recipes. Their evenings were a simple kind of beautiful, shared meals, books spread open on the living room floor, puzzles half finished, and telescope sessions in the attic when the sky was clear. Jordan had started middle school now, taller, sharper, with a quiet kind of confidence that made his teachers call him an old soul. He joined a peer mentoring program, and Colin smiled when he overheard his son explaining orbital velocity to a younger student without a hint of condescension. Jordan was growing into himself. Colin had returned to his career with a different pace. He no longer rushed. He declined meetings after 5 p.m. He led his team well, but never forgot the cost of being absent from his own life. He had transformed, not in loud ways, but in the slow evolution of someone who had been through fire and come out forged. One weekend in October, Jordan asked if Elise could join them for a school fundraiser picnic. It was the first time he wanted them to share an event, not just attend separately. Colin paused, as always, and asked, "How do you want that day to look?" Jordan answered without hesitation. "Like we're all just there for me. Not for the past, not for anything else. Just for me." Colin nodded. "Then we can do that." The picnic was held on a wide lawn at a forest preserve. Folding tables, potluck dishes, games for the kids. Elise arrived with a simple pasta salad and a calm demeanor. She greeted Colin with a short nod and a thank you under her breath. Jordan spent the day tugging both of them from one event to the next. Egg toss, sack races, a short parent-kid trivia contest where they all ended up on the same team. They didn't win, but they laughed. Genuinely. At the end of the day, Colin found himself standing beside Elise, watching Jordan run off with his friends toward a snow cone truck. "He's strong," Elise said. "He had to be." "Because of me." Colin glanced at her. "Partly, but also because of what came after. What we built after." She didn't press for more. She simply nodded, then excused herself to head home. Jordan returned with 2 snow cones, one for himself, one for Colin. "They were out of lemon. I got cherry. Hope that's okay." Colin smiled. "Perfect." That fall, they started a new tradition. Friday night question jars. Each would write a question during the week, fold it up, and place it in a glass jar. On Friday night, over popcorn, they'd take turns pulling questions and answering. Some were silly. If you could build a robot for any task, what would it be? Some were serious. What's one thing you miss about the past? When that one came up, Colin answered first. "I miss how easy things felt at the beginning, when your mom and I were young and thought love was enough by itself." Jordan thought for a while. "I miss not having to wonder if people mean what they say, but I guess that just means I pay attention more now." Colin reached over and gave his shoulder a light squeeze. "You see people clearly. That's a strength." "You do too. You just waited too long to say it out loud." Colin smiled. "You're not wrong." By November, Elise had been approved for 2 weekends per month with Jordan. The custody arrangement had slowly expanded, and Jordan was the one setting the boundaries now. One Sunday evening, when he returned from her place, he placed a sketchbook on Colin's desk. "She drew this, said you should have it." Colin flipped through it. Watercolors, soft renderings of familiar places, the beach house they once rented, a cafe they used to frequent, and finally, the tiny model Colin had built, the miniature of their first apartment. It was captured with such fragile detail, he had to pause. "She asked me if you hated her," Jordan said quietly. "What did you say?" "I said no. I said you just stopped waiting for her to be someone she wasn't." Colin closed the book gently. "You're a very honest kid. I got that from you." Thanksgiving came around again. This time Jordan asked if they could do something entirely different. No big dinner, no family invites, just us, somewhere new, somewhere quiet. Colin booked a cabin near Lake Geneva, just a 2-hour drive, nestled in the trees, with a fireplace and no television. They brought board games, books, and marshmallows. It was the most peaceful Thanksgiving Colin had ever known. They cooked a simple meal together, talked about space travel, movies, and one question Jordan snuck into their luggage. "If you could send a message back in time to yourself, what would you say?" Colin answered. "I'd say, don't wait for permission to change your life. If something hurts every day, that's your answer." "That's a good one," Jordan said. "I think I'd say, take pictures of stuff, even the boring days. They end up being the ones you want to remember." They watched snow fall from the cabin window that night. Jordan fell asleep reading. Colin sat by the fireplace, thinking not of what was lost, but of what he had reclaimed. December came and went gently. Jordan split the holidays again, half with each parent. There were no arguments. Elise gave Colin a holiday card addressed simply, "Thank you for building a boy who knows what it means to be seen." Colin didn't reply. He didn't need to. The new year started not with fireworks, but with quiet intention. Jordan made a resolution to start a science podcast. Colin promised to help him. Together they researched equipment, wrote out a first episode, and recorded it in the attic. It was awkward, funny, and surprisingly moving. "Today's topic," Jordan began, "is gravity, how it pulls everything together, even when things want to fly apart." Colin sat behind the mic, quietly adjusting the levels, heart full. They uploaded it to a small hosting site, shared it with friends. Even Elise listened. She sent a message to both. "You made me cry. I learned something. Again." Spring rolled in. Colin planted herbs in the backyard, Jordan focused on the podcast, and life carried on without spectacle, just the honest daily building of a life that made sense. One night as they walked home from a late library visit, Jordan asked, "Do you ever think about dating again?" Colin exhaled slowly. "Sometimes, but I like what we have, and I'm not in a hurry to change that. If you do, she has to like space and grilled cheese." Noted. That April, Elise texted Colin out of the blue. "Would it be all right if I joined you both for Jordan's birthday this year? As a guest. Not as family, just as someone who cares." Colin thought for a long time before replying. He should decide. Jordan decided yes. They planned a quiet party at the house with a homemade rocket cake, 3 friends, and a telescope session afterward. Elise arrived with a small wrapped gift and a card. She stayed for 2 hours, helped clean up, and left without lingering. When the door closed behind her, Jordan said, "That felt normal. Not weird, just calm." Colin nodded. "That's the best kind of progress." Jordan ran upstairs, shouting, "I'm going to edit the podcast now." Colin remained in the kitchen, wiping down the counter. There was no ache in his chest, no confusion in his mind, just gratitude, for time, for silence, for the long, slow way healing really happened, and for the boy upstairs who had always deserved better and was finally living it. Summer came again, and with it, a year that felt both long and brief. Long in the way healing stretches across days without asking for permission, and brief in the way joy creeps in when no one's watching. The anniversary of the divorce passed without fanfare. No one mentioned it. There was no need to. The life Colin and Jordan had built together no longer stood in reaction to what was lost. It had grown, sprouted roots, and carried its own momentum. Jordan turned 12. He started speaking about the future in terms of high schools and STEM camps, space competitions, and college programs. Colin watched him with the pride of a man who once feared he might lose everything, but chose instead to rebuild deliberately, brick by brick. They traveled that summer, a road trip through the Midwest. Not glamorous, not expensive, but unforgettable. They stopped in small towns, visited science museums, camped under clear skies, and ate at diners with jukeboxes older than either of them could guess. Jordan recorded podcast entries on the go, capturing the sounds of birds at dawn, rivers in the distance, the hum of long roads ahead. One night, while camping beside a lake, Jordan asked, "Do you think everything happened the way it was supposed to?" Colin stirred the campfire. "No, but I think we made the most of what we were given." "Do you regret marrying Mom?" Colin didn't answer immediately. "No, I regret who she became, but I don't regret loving her when I did." "And now?" "Now I just focus on being someone you'd be proud to look up to." Jordan looked up at the stars, eyes narrowing. "You are." When they returned home, a letter was waiting. Not from Elise this time, from the school district. Jordan had been nominated for a citywide youth science award. His teacher had written a glowing recommendation, noting his podcast, his mentorship work, and his passionate pursuit of knowledge. The award ceremony would be held in September. Colin read the letter and set it down slowly. He thought back to a year ago, the silence of that drive away from the house, the weight of what he'd uncovered, the knowledge that ending the marriage would shatter what little illusion they had left. Now, a new reality stood in its place. Something earned, something honest. The ceremony was held in a glass atrium on a crisp autumn evening. Elise arrived in a navy dress, standing respectfully off to the side. Colin and Jordan stood together, hands at their sides, until Jordan said, "She should sit with us, just this once." Colin gave him a small nod. Elise walked over, hesitantly. Jordan motioned to the chair beside him. "Thanks," she whispered. "Just here for him," Colin replied. Jordan won. Not just an honorary mention, but first place. He stood at the podium with a confidence that carried across the room. "This award means a lot," he said, "because science isn't just about discovery. It's about asking questions when you're scared of the answers. It's about believing things can work again, even after they break. My dad taught me that, and so did life." Elise wiped away a tear. Colin simply looked forward, listening. Afterward, Jordan took photos with his mentors, friends, and teachers. Elise stood back, not intruding. When they were finally alone again, Jordan handed her the certificate. "Hold this for me while I grab my backpack," she smiled. "Of course." Colin watched the exchange. She was learning how to stay in the moment without grasping too tightly. It was something. Later that night, after Jordan had gone to bed, Elise approached Colin outside by the curb where her car was parked. "You did right by him." "We both did. In different ways. At different times." She looked at the house behind him. "I used to think I wanted everything back. But I don't. I just want the peace I see in him." "Then keep showing up the right way." She nodded, then got in her car and drove off. Back inside, Colin stood by Jordan's door for a moment, listening to the soft rustle of sheets, the familiar hum of their quiet life. He didn't feel victorious. He felt full. Not because he had taken revenge, not because he had destroyed her, but because he had refused to be destroyed. The miniature model of their old apartment still sat in a corner shelf in his office. It wasn't about sentiment anymore. It was a reminder. Beginnings matter, but so do the choices made when the facade crumbles. And Colin had chosen silence over rage, patience over vindication, truth over illusion. He had chosen to live, and in doing so, he had given his son the kind of life that needed no defense. What did you think of this story and how he handled everything? Would you have made the same choice or walked a different path? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe.